All right, just good evening, everybody. We're happy to see all of you here this evening for our last PAC meeting, at least for and related to the action plan. I'll go ahead and jump right into tonight's meeting agenda. We're using, while Doreen Liberto Blanc can't be here tonight, so we'll go ahead and go over the materials she usually shares. Okay, so in a moment we'll have announcements from Nick. I'll just briefly go over the ground rules after we get through this agenda. I'll check to see if there are any new people here who haven't attended any PAC meetings yet. Maybe you could identify yourself if you have not attended a PAC meeting before. We would like to meet you. All right, I don't see anybody identifying themselves as new. So we will go ahead and we'll proceed through the meeting. So after we go over the ground rules, we'll get right into the student presentations. They're going to review the status of our action plan, which has been our project, some proposed actions, and then finally we'll leave more time this evening for discussion and hearing your thoughts and ideas and questions related to the students' work. And then finally, we'll turn it back over to Nick to go ahead and close the evening off. All right, let's see. So the meeting ground rules are those that were established back in fall quarter. And this is, concerning discussion and the way the meeting is conducted. So here are the ground rules everyone agreed to. Show up on time and come prepared. Turn off or mute your cell phone. Please engage in respectful dialogue, no debating, but instead listening and seeking to understand each other. Make sure everyone has a chance to participate. Please share your unique perspective and make sure to stay on point. Let's tackle issues and not people, and respect everyone's thinking and value their contribution. Critique ideas, not individuals. All right, so those are the ground rules. I'm going to stop sharing this and turn the meeting over to Nick for any announcements, and then we'll move right into the presentation that the students have for you.
Thanks, Kelly, and let me add my welcome to all of you for being here tonight. I have 3 items that I want to mention to you and not dwell on, but the first has to do with the continuation of the PAC. The second has to do with spring projects over spring term, where we are, at least what we have in mind at the moment. And the third has to do with where we go after spring term, that is plans afoot for implementation planning. And that is really a crucial piece to all of this, given the history of past plans that have really led to nowhere. So item number 1, we expect that we're planning or hoping to have a meeting in early June. We haven't settled on a date, but we'd like you to pencil in the first Wednesday in June, at which time we expect to be able to present to you, as Kelly will probably elaborate on further, the final results of the study after those results have been carefully vetted. There are reasons for there are a number of reasons why we've had to carry over the study effort into the spring term. The pandemic is one, the complexity of the study effort, and of course, the need for the follow-up after the study, the vetting process. So that's where we are. If you pencil in the first Wednesday, which is June 1st, as a possible meeting date, and I'll follow up with you on that at a later time. Then we're in the process right now, based largely on what the students have put together, on putting together a list of projects for the next planning studio in the City and Regional Planning Department that Professor Symbieta will be heading. And when we talk about these projects, I'd like people you all to be thinking about the general plans we have for development in the future. One set of ideas or plans will have to do with short and intermediate term actions, stuff, items that or ideas, concepts that people in the community have indicated they want or need now. They don't want to wait for it. We want to be able to move forward with that. And the second area has to do with longer term economic development types of activities that have to do with jobs, affordable housing, business development, and that sort of thing. So those are the two perspectives that we have in mind in terms of future activities. And then the third item I mentioned, the third item that just wanted to mention is that we will be moving forward at this very shortly with plans for an implementation stage for the OEDC effort that will carry on, hopefully over the next, who knows how long, how many years. But the idea really for the formation of the OEDC has always been implementation, and not just leaving all of these ideas and plans that have emerged to be shelved, as it has been done in the past. So I'll leave it at that, Kelly, and turn it back to you.
Right. Thank you, Nick. And now I'd like to turn it over to Connor, who's our MC for the evening. He's going to go ahead and proceed with letting us know what's up tonight and beginning with that information.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it. If we could get the presentation up, I believe Riley is manning that. Ah, perfect. Awesome. So tonight we are, welcome back. We're the MCRP 22. We're going to be presenting our grassroots initiative for growth. Next slide. So before we do anything, I just want to let you guys know how to enable speaker view. Basically, before I begin, I want to remind you all how to enable it, just in case you wanted to see the smiling, shining faces of the student presenting to you. If you're accessing this through Zoom, you can click the view button in the top right corner and then click speaker. That way, the only person that you will see on your screen is the person who is speaking. I'll give you a second to do that if you guys need to do it. Okay, next slide. So tonight's agenda, we will be giving you guys an action plan update, basically what we've accomplished over the last 6 months. We're going to describe what our outreach has been, the data, facts, and research that we've collected on Oceano. And then we're going to give you an update of what's going to be continuing in the spring quarter. Then we're going to be going on to the student presentations of actions and inspirations. Those are going to include the students' actions that we've chosen. And then we'll have a questions and thoughts section. So I encourage everybody to take notes during this. If there's something you would like to discuss with us at the end, we will give you time to do that. We'll also wrap up at the end and show you a bunch of actions as well that you guys will be able to take notes on. Next slide. So the first thing we're going to do is the action plan update. So what we've accomplished so far, give me just a second, I need to get on the same page for my notes. What we've accomplished over the past 20 weeks, we have completed the online and mail-in surveys, and they are now closed. We got 64 English online surveys and 4 Spanish surveys. 8 mail-in surveys were returned to us from the ones that we placed out in the community. These surveys are very important data points, and they will help us round out the representational door-to-door survey data that we are continuing to collect. We also are going to be continuing our door-to-door surveying through the spring quarter. So work is not going to be ending just because we're moving into a new quarter. We also did a number of pop-up events in and around Oceano. We did a pop-up event at Central Market, Efforts Deli, Vaughn's and Aurora Grande, and this was to engage with patrons and identify high priority areas in Oceano using a map that we developed with our graphical information service team, GIS. The questions that we asked and the activities that we put on our pop-up were based in large part on the information that we got from our first round of interviews with PAC members. And your willingness to participate in these interviews is appreciated, and they have played an integral role in advancing the research that we're doing in Oceano for the Health and Equity Action Plan. Next slide. The first 8 weeks of researching that we've done in Oceano is basically getting to know Oceano. We made several site trips to explore the community. We also studied previous plans, such as the 2013 Oceano Revitalization Plan that was done by the County of San Luis Obispo, the 2014 Oceano Community Health Plan, which was a master's thesis project by Philip Brennan. We also did a number of research items to build our expertise in the community, such as doing outreach events that were done with the community and other resources, such as health and equity surveys. And then we also did 12 in-depth interviews with community members, much like yourselves on the PAC. I'm sure a number of you were interviewed by people in our project. We did outreach events. We did a number of focus groups. We did one with 6th graders at Oceano Elementary. We met with Oceano Elementary parents at a coffee meeting. And then we also had a meeting via Zoom with the promotores. Again, we did pop-ups at Vaughn's, Deltina Coffee, Central Market, and Efrons. Next slide, please. So I'm going to discuss what we're going to be going through on spring quarter. So like I said earlier, work is not ending on this project. Our dedicated translators and our fearless leader, Dr. Kelly Main, will be continuing to work on this throughout the spring quarter. We have completed over 150 door-to-door surveys, and this in itself is an amazing accomplishment due to the world that we've been working in. COVID stopped us from being able to go out on our original schedule in January, but we have been really pounding the pavement and burning through shoe leather to get into the community, and we are seeing results. We will be working toward our goal of getting 250 door-to-door surveys. The action plan, the editing team is going to be refining this document throughout the spring quarter. And due to the nature of how the data is being collected, we are not going to be releasing any of this data during this meeting at this time. Basically, we don't want to sway any of the future data by talking about what we've already gathered. You can kind of liken this to election night, where polls on the East Coast have closed, but the West Coast is still open. We're very much like the news. We don't want to call an election before every poll is closed. The reason is that the data is changing week to week as we make our way through the community. Different neighborhoods have different ethnic populations, different age groups, different sex groups, male, female. So we want to make sure that we are getting the most data possible. If we get our 250 goal, the survey will be random, representative, and it will have a 95% confidence interval. The final report will be coming together sometime at the end of May so that we can incorporate all of the data that is currently being collected and coded. The final report will be sent directly to OEDC, OAC, VACO, the Community Services District, and the San Luis Obispo County Board of Supervisors. And we will also make this available on our website for the community to be able to see and use the data that we're collecting. Next slide. Third quarter studio, basically what's going to be happening is of the 13 students that were in the fall project, 9 are going to be moving on into the spring studio. And basically what they're going to be doing is taking the 44 actions that we have created in our action plan, and they're going to be focusing on 9 of these and how to implement them in the community. For instance, in previous studios, students have been working on projects such as writing new zoning ordinances, creating a specific plan for different areas in town, such as Pier Avenue or the airport, working on lists of grants that the community can apply for. Those are just some of the examples. So we will be continuing to work throughout the spring quarter on Oceano. So we're not leaving you guys just yet. Next slide. I don't think that we need to go into an intermission. I think we're moving along just fine, unless anybody needs to take, a bio break or anything like that. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. So we're going to be starting with the actions and the inspirations. So tonight's actions, we are going to be focusing on 11 of the 44 actions. They are listed on the slides as A1 through A11. We encourage you to take notes during this. So please take notes on anything you would like to discuss with us during the question and answer portion. After all 4 teams present, we will have a general discussion of your questions and thoughts. So the students' choice of their 11 actions, basically they wanted to address issues of health, equity, and sustainability. The reason that we chose these are suggesting best practices for the community. They're also priorities that we have seen starting to emerge in information that we've learned about the community. They also provide a range of actions. A number of students are focusing on things that are easier and quicker solutions. And then there are some students that are going to be focusing on things that are long-term and more capital intensive. Next slide. So student teams, we've been divided into 4 different areas. We have housing, economics, and food access, and that's with Allison, Michael, and David Thorson. The environment and sustainability, which is David Yeager, Sadie, and Nicole. Complete neighborhoods and mobility, which includes Alex, myself, Margot, and Vaishnavi. And the community committee, which includes Olivia, Rachel, and Riley Rodriguez. And we're going to move on to the first group, which is housing, food access, and economy.
Hello, my name is Michael. I'll be representing my peers, David and Allison. So a few of the actions that we'll be discussing today in relation to our subjects, 1 being incentivize multifamily housing, 2, supporting economic development, and 3, pursuing a farmer's market in Oceano. So 2 components of the action to incentivize multifamily housing in Oceano. 1 being identifying vacant or underutilized lots in the community. And then following up with that, an update of zoning to allow for different types of housing, as well as more housing on sites that can accommodate it. And our inspiration for this action, it closely aligns with housing element produced by the county most recently in 2020. County policies have promoted multifamily housing as a priority. And additionally, in our outreach efforts with the community in terms of surveying and focus groups and interviews, it's been a recurring theme that we've heard, a support for more affordable housing in the area. And on the right there is a successful project by People Self-Help Housing, La Brisa Marina, which is located in Oceano. Another action is this to support economic development. 1 component of this is to assist community members to apply for business grant programs. More of those will be covered on the next slide, as well as identifying business sectors desired in the community. One of the things that when we were speaking with community members in focus groups and interviews and surveys, there was a mention of an interest in having more businesses in Oceano. So more specifically identifying what types of businesses those would be. And then the inspiration for this would be the USDA Rural Development Business Grants Program, as well as the USDA Rural Development Community Facilities Program. These are 2 prime funding opportunities for Oceano to better serve their businesses. And our third action would be pursuing farmers markets. Multiple components of this, one being coordinating efforts with the San Luis Obispo County Farmers Market Association, as well as other farmers market associations in the area. Additionally, collaborating with farm stands, such as the Hayashi farm stand in Oceano. And then inspiration for this includes the Santa Maria Friday night market, just in the neighboring town, as well as surveys, interviews, and focus groups. Participants had remarked of a desire to see a farmer's market within their community. We'll just take a minute to review the actions that we went over. If you have any questions, feel free to write those in the chat or any notes or comments for us. I will just take a minute before going on to the next group.
We're going to move on to complete neighborhoods and mobility, and Alex Lopez will be talking about this.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Connor. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to listen to our actions. My name is Alex Lopez, and I will be speaking on behalf of the Complete Neighborhood and Mobility Chapter Team, which includes Vaishnavi, Margot, and Connor. Next slide, please. The actions we'll be focusing on in this presentation are installing a complete street and traffic safety infrastructure for pedestrians, first including sidewalks and painted crosswalks, and then also implementing a lighting program for streetscapes and public spaces to enhance visibility and safety. Next slide. Our first action, streets with complete street design. The complete sidewalks and infrastructure enhancements should cater to pedestrians first and provide accessible routes for the youth, elderly, and disabled. This can be implemented by identifying high priority areas, securing local and state funding, community input on unique crosswalk design, and preparing for ongoing maintenance. Next slide, please. So you might ask, what exactly is a complete street? From the U.S. Department of Transportation, they define it as streets designed as and operated to enable safe use, support mobility for all users. Those include people of all ages and abilities, regardless of whether they are traveling as drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists, or public transportation riders. So I'd like to take a quick second and have everyone take a look at the graphic on the screen here. It shows the different types of users that are able to be on the street at the same time. From left to right, the space is dedicated for people, children, elderly, ADA, disabled, bicyclists, cars, mass transit, shared mobility. And what we found is the most intriguing aspect is social interaction. So street furniture, parks, public art, public green spaces, and lighting. Next slide. Our inspiration came from two main sources. Based on our research and our connections, the Safe Routes Partnership is preparing a competitive grant application to secure funding for new and additional sidewalks. We believe that this would be a great start to changing the streets in Oceano, but also along with the proven street designs that have been in other communities similar to Oceano. The combination of new and improved infrastructure with the cutting edge street designs would foster a sense of pride and would invigorate the overall community. And take a quick look at the pictures here, kind of show the cutting edge designs and what we envision what Oceano could look like in the future. Another inspiration was couple of community input that we've conducted, public events, wishing walls, door-to-door, and online surveys. As all this data is collected, we're seeing several trends arise. At this point, we're in the process of collection, so we'd have to wait for another day to fully elaborate on the results of the class's community outreach. Next slide. This leads us to our second action. The improved lighting program consists of providing more consistent lighting across the neighborhoods, prioritizing lighting according to land use and need, and better providing lighting fixtures. Additionally, in the long run, we would like to encourage homeowners, property managers, and business owners to maintain a minimal level of lighting along public ways consistent with best practices. And in the graphic you see here, when we are speaking about a lighting program, we're not just talking about the location, but the technology within. For example, the graphic shows what proper visibility looks like at night. On the left-hand side is what we call HPS, which is a high pressure sodium light, which is your traditional lighting, and versus the LED newer technology that's on the right. So you can see in the picture that you can see further down the street, and which creates a safer environment for pedestrians. Next slide, please. Our inspiration for the lighting program, we found several important information from existing reports. As we mentioned, Brennan had done a community outreach and the Oceano revitalization plan of 2013. One of the findings is that there's inconsistency in the placement of lights along the main streets, particularly Highway 1 and Railroad Street. And then also throughout our outreach efforts, lighting has been a reoccurring suggestion from the community members. And in the case of case studies of better lighting, other communities have found success by installing high quality and energy efficient fixtures, making sure these fixtures would maximize the visibility of the night sky and reduce glare and other unnecessary light pollution. Next slide, please. So at this moment, we'd like you to take a few minutes, 1 minute, sorry, to think of any questions that you might have or anything sparked your interest. If you could please throw it into the chat, so then later in the discussion, we can follow back with any of the comments or concerns or questions that you might have. Thank you.
So we're going to be moving on to the environmental sustainability group, and this is going to be taken over by David Yeager.
Thanks, Connor. Hi, everyone. My name is David, and with Sadie and Nicole, we are the Environment and Sustainability team. The three actions, or next slide, please. Sorry. The three actions that I'm going to be covering today on behalf of my team are launch an emergency preparedness campaign, join Central Coast Community Energy, and enhance park signage. Community leaders should launch an emergency preparedness campaign that reaches every resident, encouraging better preparation for natural disasters. This campaign should be culturally competent, focusing on working for and with the community while being mindful of their unique culture and values, preferred methods of communication, and comfort levels in different situations. Next slide. Studies have consistently found that due to cultural and linguistic barriers, Latino communities are often unprepared for natural disasters. As a result, they are disproportionately vulnerable and have a harder time recovering. To address this issue, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, launched a series of public service announcements centered around disaster preparation that were specifically aimed at Latino communities. Similar efforts in the form of meetings and workshops could be carried out in Oceano by local community leaders. Next slide. So Central Coast Community Energy, which is commonly known as 3CE, is a locally controlled public community choice energy agency that sources clean and renewable electricity to multiple areas of the Central Coast, from Monterey County all the way down to Santa Barbara County. A community choice energy agency can lower costs and provide local control and local benefits of energy production, while also using the infrastructure owned by larger companies such as PG&E to deliver energy and handle billing. The relationship is displayed on this graphic on the right here. 3CE also provides a number of energy programs that helps electrify and reduce emissions within its service area. Oceano, along with the rest of unincorporated SLO County, is currently not covered by 3CE, while nearly every other incorporated city is. This action proposes that Oceano community representatives spearhead an effort to get San Luis Obispo County to join 3CE and receive all the benefits that nearby cities do. Next slide, please. This action was inspired by the fact that Oceano is not currently covered by 3CE and isn't able to have a choice of energy provider like other cities in SLO County. Last year, unincorporated Santa Barbara County did join 3CE, which showed that this kind of action is possible. Next slide, please. The natural spaces in Oceano should have informative, aesthetically pleasing signs that mark entrances to nature access points. Oceano can work with California State Parks to develop sign standards that help navigate to and arrive at these areas. Park signs in Oceano can provide information and directions for people to find their way around the park, encourage learning experiences, and help maintain the image of the park and communicate park rules. Next slide. Participants in surveys, interviews, and focus groups that we did in Oceano voiced a desire for better accessibility to parks, the dunes, and the beach. This includes improved signs and wayfinding markers to the other dune and beach access points outside of just the Pier Avenue entrance. The National Recreation and Park Association has recommendations for creating great park signage that is used by parks of all sizes across the country. Next slide. All right, and again, if you want, take about a minute to finish writing or write any questions you have about our team's actions in the chat area. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
So we're going to move on to sense of community, and Olivia will be taking this over.
It'll be Riley.
Oh, I'm sorry, Riley.
You're good. Hi, everyone. My name is Riley, and along with Rachel and Olivia, we are the community committee focusing on a sense of community through safe and diverse places. Some of the actions we are proposing to you today include increasing public seating, expanding health literacy amongst residents, and organizing a mobile food vendor festival. The public seating program is designed to enhance public seating, public spaces throughout Oceano by creating an inviting and comfortable outdoor environment that encourages community members to gather. Implementing public seating throughout the community in the form of benches, picnic tables, or movable chairs will promote activity while strengthening social relationships amongst the residents. Although there is currently minimal outdoor public seating in Oceano, we see opportunity for implementation at bus stops, along Pier Avenue, on the beach, or when new sidewalks are being constructed. For example, wide walkways or curb extensions could be considered when designing new sidewalks to allow space for public seating. One way in which this action can be completed is by having nonprofit organizations, community groups, and or local businesses partner up with or partner together to apply for small project grants. We know that public seating and gathering spaces are desired among the community based on Brennan's community outreach work and from our own engagement efforts this year. The intended outcome of a health literacy program is that participants hone those skills that are necessary for making informed health-related decisions, that participant health and well-being be enhanced, and that rates of being uninsured be minimized amongst program participants and the entire community. To achieve these ends, health literacy programming should focus largely on interpreting medical documents such as patient information forms, patient rights and responsibilities, medical history questionnaires, and applications to be submitted to physicians or insurance providers. Additionally, these programs should be facilitated at various times throughout the week and weekend, accounting for community members' work, school, or childcare schedules. Local Oceano community organizations can work together with the San Luis Obispo Public Health Department to establish these meetings and provide information on this subject. It is also important that courses support English language learners. Rates of being insured versus uninsured vary by race, ethnicity, income, and language spoken at home. In Oceano, residents who reported limited English proficiency also reported higher rates of being uninsured than community members that reported strong English language skills. Additionally, the Hispanic Latino community in Oceano reported the highest rates of being uninsured of any ethnic or racial group at a rate of 18.9%. The negative health impacts felt by those community members who lack access to health insurance can be mitigated by participating in health literacy programs such as Project Shine. Project Shine is a program designed to improve English language learners' capacity to interact in different health-related environments. The valuable lessons taught by Project Shine facilitators are communicated through role-playing, speaking practice, and written exercises. Participation in these programs has been linked to minimize costs of health services and better health outcomes. Mobile food vendor festivals are also a great way to bring the community together, as well as support local businesses. They can be for the entire family and include activities such as selling food and having games. Community organizers can partner with local organizations or businesses to utilize parking lots and bring in food trucks and cart vendors from local places to come to the event. The inspiration behind this action was a desire for more community gathering spaces in Oceano where the community can come together to socialize and enjoy leisure time. A great example of this is the recent establishment of G Beats food truck lot in Grover Beach, which started on a business's parking lot hosted every week and gained so much popularity that the city zoned it to make it a permanent food truck lot. It is a great way for the community to come together, but also introduce others to the area. We would like you to, again, please take a moment to finalize any of your questions for us in the chat. Additionally, all of us have also listed further actions that we will be presenting in our final project. And if you would like to see certain groups, you can ask for us and or you can ask us and we'll present those to you. Thank you so much.
I love the idea of the mobile food vendor festival. Some great ideas. It's terrific ideas.
We can move on to the next slide, Riley. So we're going to move into a general question time where we want to know your thoughts. If you have any questions on this, I believe, Kelly, do you want to moderate this or?
Well, I think one thing we might do is, each of you, the students might address some of the questions that are in the chat area. There's been some really great questions there and comments. And so we might begin back, at the beginning of the questions. Students take a look at the chat area and just jump in and I'll just go ahead and go through them. And then also, of course, we just want to open it up to general discussion. Let's see. The first thing that I see is from Bonnie. And she says, and this would be addressed to our housing team, I thought lots for ADUs was identified in the 2018 plan. Is this an update? I think maybe. Bonnie, jump in here if I'm getting this right. And then how should we get past zoning roadblocks? An excellent question. So Michael or any of that team?
Hey, Bonnie. So this was the last time the zoning map, land use map in Oceano was updated in 2017. Is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm actually referring to the Cal Poly class that was here, and they assessed they basically came up with Oceano is ripe with a lot of big lots and small houses on those big lots. So it was ripe for ADU. The only stumbling block was, of course, that if you put in an ADU, I believe you had to put in a sidewalk. So that, and plus the fees and plus everything else, that it's simply not feasible financially. And that, so we have those hurdles to overcome before, but we're primed for ADUs here. And I don't know, do we need to do another assessment? Because I believe they did that in 2018. Nick might know more.
Yeah, in recent years, the requirements for placing an ADU on an R1 lot or an R2, a multifamily lot, have become a lot easier. I've heard from residents regarding the addition of sidewalks. If you're doing X amount of investment at the property site, I don't know if that still is in place with the updated ADU laws of the past few years. So I'm not sure what the county's rules are for adding an ADU on an R1 or R2.
Bonnie, what I will say is that what we're starting to see throughout California with the more recent legislation on housing is that cities are beginning to change their fees and rules for ADUs because they see this as a way to address affordable housing issues. So I think that is in a way is what would need to be done in the county. So perhaps a student will take this up as an action in the third quarter studio. There's some great examples of communities, even right here in SLO County, that have started to make these amendments. And so I think that's why one of the things mentioned by Michael is the issue of changing zoning and, other regulations related to ADUs. But you're right. The fees are one of the things that are the biggest obstruction to ADUs getting done.
But I think the assessment, I think they did a whole map and it was colored, and I think that was all done by students in 2018.
Yeah, I know the assessment's already been done.
Yeah.
I think Michael was talking about looking at county property as well as a way of looking at housing, which is a slightly different thing than private development. And there are quite a number of county properties that might be available for some affordable housing. So that's the other issue too. I don't know if anybody else wanted to say anything about ADUs or before we move on to some of the other questions in chat.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Looking at the 2020 December, from this past December ADU handbook from the state no longer has a ordinance that no physical improvements shall be required in the creation or conversion of an ADU. So, and state law supersedes the local law. So I don't think they could require sidewalks anymore with ADUs, just the permitting cost of ADUs.
No, they can't. And there's also a number of other requirements and limitations on what cities can do and counties can do now. So those are all things that, I'm not sure, most property owners are aware of some of the changes in the laws. That's the other issue about whether people really understand what they could do now with ADUs. So I know Michael, at one time we talked about like a public information campaign to let property owners know what they might do in terms of ADUs. That might be very important in getting people to apply. Okay, we can move on to Bill Symbieta's question. He has a question about the economic development proposal and who is being addressed there in that recommendation for economic development. So I don't know if David Thorson, you want to jump in? That's your item.
Yeah, so for those two programs, rural public entities are eligible for application, and those would include towns, communities, state agencies, authorities, nonprofit corporations, institutions for higher education, federally recognized tribes, and rural cooperatives.
Have you identified anybody in Oceano or any groups in Oceano you think might be likely to assist with the applications?
Not specifically, but that's something I intend to work on.
I don't know, Bill, if you want to follow up with any questions there.
Well, I'm sure. I thought the presentation was not very clear then, if this is only directed to public agencies and rural agencies, because the economic development idea of getting jobs and promoting local business is done business by business. So I thought it needs a little more attention to what if someone in the community wants to create a business? I mean, how does this action to help them? I mean, what is the action that helps that individual create the business? So that's where I wanted to get the discussion going, because I wasn't clear where, if someone has a little business and they want to start a repair shop, is this the program for them? I mean, so it's a little thin. The presentation action A2 is a little thin and needs to be increased in terms of its applicability.
It sounds like some work is needed on being a little bit more specific for the final action that's included in the plan.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, let's see.
See a hand up for Nick.
Okay, great. Nick?
Yes. Let me see. We've got Mike. Yes, I have a question about the scope of the study that you went into in connection with economic development beyond agriculture, because it seems to me that we're getting back to what Bill was talking about a moment ago, job creation and that sort of thing, business development, that the potential for Oceano in terms of job creation goes beyond ag. And while they're mired in ag, they have remained pretty depressed. And it's not that we want to turn away, or Oceano should be looking for ways to move away from ag. Just that's not a particularly in connection with the need for healthy food options and that sort of thing. But my hope would be that there was some focus on expanding the local economy beyond ag, and if so, what kinds of business development prospects have come to mind for you in this initiative?
David, do you want to show them or to discuss the other actions you're also talking about that are?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just briefly state, I was thinking of general economic development, and as we're working through our surveys, we're getting more types of business sectors that are being recommended by community members, and we're kind of working through those and seeing what the community is interested in before making recommendations. But we've been hearing back from a variety of different sectors that the community would be interested in seeing, and looking to make recommendations and kind of flesh that out based on what the community is interested in.
But to what degree, may I ask, David, was there interest expressed in tourism and specifically too in ecotourism?
Well, I'm not supposed to specifically get into the results of our survey just yet, as it is not complete. But I will say tourism was mentioned throughout the surveys, and we did get responses that were related to tourism and many other different sectors.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we're seeing a broad support across many different types of businesses in terms of the kinds of economic development people would like to see.
Mhm.
Liliana Vega has her hand raised.
Yeah, I think that's great that we're seeing interest in a variety of different businesses. I think one of the projects I worked on in Idaho, and I think this relates here, I think maybe looking at developing some entrepreneurship programs specifically for undocked community, because we know that a lot of the folks who tend to live in the Oceano area live there because they can't afford to live in other areas. And a lot of it also has to do with status as well. So I think creating programs, entrepreneurship programs that allow education on how to start your own businesses and that focus on the undocked community would be definitely great to consider as you're looking at developing, helping with the development of businesses and entrepreneurship. The other thing too is I'm hoping that all the students are really taking a look at, these are great ideas, I love them. I just want to make sure that we have an equity lens when we apply those, because I love the idea of lighting and sidewalks, but what I do know is often a fact is under-resourced neighborhoods, so impoverished neighborhoods tend to be the ones that don't get the sidewalks, tend to be the ones that don't get the lighting. So how do we make sure that as we're looking at these community improvements, places where people can gather and sit, that those are placed strategically, right, and under-resourced neighborhoods and not just in well-resourced neighborhoods within Oceano. So just wanted to throw that out there because I think that that needs to be heavily considered with any of the work that we do with this Oceano economic plan.
Thank you, Leanne. That's a very important comment. And certainly one of the actions that's going to go forward with this plan is that the county begin to do equity analyses as they approve new projects, and that they assess the neighborhoods that are that have not been well served in the past and prioritize those neighborhoods. So one of the ways is to ensure that it's in the county decision makers field of vision that there's an equity issue and that they should be considering equity issues when they make budgeting decisions. And I think also this is a good time to turn to Charles Varney, who is working on with others on the grant application for sidewalks, and he might have some things to say about this as well, making sure that specific communities are getting sidewalks and other improvements. Charles?
Yeah, sure. Just briefly, the Oceano Advisory Council created a task force for curb gutters and sidewalks and flood control really a couple of years ago. And out of that has come a very large and fairly detailed grant proposal that is being developed right now, with the lead agency being the Sloat Council of Governments, and in a partnership with the CMR School District and the Safe Routes Partnership and the Oceano Advisory Council. We just completed a very large survey research project at Oceano Elementary School. English and Spanish surveys were sent home with every student at Oceano Elementary School, and over 200 have been returned. That's over 50% of the families at Oceano Elementary School have responded, and that's all around safe routes to schools and why are kids walking or not walking. And out of that, we're going to have very strong empirical evidence, community engagement, family support for the proposal. And with that proposal is looking at around $17 to $20 million and creates an infrastructure safe streets, sidewalks in Oceano so that no child will have more than half a block to walk to get to a full sidewalk, safe street all the way to school. That can be the backbone of a lot of the things that are being discussed here. Like when we're digging up the streets and putting in sidewalks, we probably want to lay the wires for streetlights, and looking at maybe some additional funding for streetlights for that installation. So lots of ways to collaborate there. And I don't know, is that what you were looking for, Kelly?
Right. I think that the progress you're making on this is tremendous. And I think, you know, I've heard you speak about it several times, and I think your statement is that the time is now, and that the state recognizes the importance of addressing these concerns in communities that are labeled as disadvantaged. And so I think maybe there's greater hope now than ever before in terms of this funding possibly coming through for Oceano. I don't know, Liliana, if that kind of begins to address your issues or not.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely begins to address my issues. And Charles, I think you made a good point. You know, how do we make sure that before we start laying sidewalks and stuff, we really think about other infrastructure issues? And I'm hoping, you know, with the world of COVID, we also learned who has access to internet and who does not. And hopefully that gets thrown in the mix as well.
Yeah, I think that's exactly why we're doing door-to-door surveys, and while Charles is sending home the surveys, because, you know, we saw this with the online survey. We just did not have the response. We knew we wouldn't probably, and you know, it definitely was demonstrated there. So
Ileana, I'd just like to comment back to you directly that it is so clear of that the survey and questionnaire fatigue in the community of Oceano. I mean, it's just, I don't know if Kelly, you've been encountering this, but it's like, you know, at the parent teachers organization meeting a couple of weeks ago, it was the feedback from the parents was like, gosh, we filled out so many survey forms, and every time we say we want curb gutters and sidewalks and we want safe intersections, and I see some of my other Oceano colleagues here nodding to this, and this is just, it's a tough situation to come in and say, when I tell people it's like, now is the time. We know that we've been asked, we haven't gotten, but now's the time we really need to stand up. And I think the more that we all give that message of hope, and that it will serve us well. So I just kind of want to be the little cheerleader here for it, cautiously optimistic.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry,
sorry,
go ahead.
I would like to add to that, then saying that we have a big responsibility in the community because they're trusting us. Like you said, how many times have we been served since I'm a resident? Like, what is going to make the difference? Like, we're kind of skeptical, so we need to be aware, like how big the responsible are, because we have the community trust, and because we can make a change. Like this time, like you said, it's going to be different. Like, we're collecting this data to make a change, not just to put it on the side or on the table or just to sit on it. So I just want to say, like, we have a big responsibility and to move this through, because we have the community trust in us to make something happen or not to happen and be stuck in the same place.
And that I should mention, that's Fernanda Lucas, our community liaison, who has helped us tremendously. And one of the things that she and I have been talking about with people is we are hoping that, because this is going to be the first, our survey is going to be, our door-to-door survey is going to be the first representative survey completed, which could claim representation of the community, that it will have some power with the Board of Supervisors. I also wanted to suggest that, you know, to rely on the county for provision of these things is, it is their responsibility. But I think other actions we have to consider have to do with advocacy from the community, from all of you, from us. And that's why one of the actions we'll be recommending, for instance, is we're hopeful there'll be the development of a community development corporation that works in tandem with the OEDC, whose job it is to raise funding for projects that the community has deemed important, that can work with the county, but who works independently of the county getting funding. And Guadalupe has a great example of that. Well, Bill Symbieta can talk about that in more detail. Their CDC has raised millions of dollars for projects. So I think it's not only looking to the county to meet their responsibilities, which they should be, but it's also finding other ways to raise funds to address community needs. I think, is it Aline? You have your hand up? Even though it says Charles Varney, it looks like Aline Via to me. You just need to take your mute off.
There we go. I
Yes.
just can't change the name. I go over the name and it just doesn't give me the option. But my name's on there also, so that's
Okay.
weird. But so yes, I think it's very important that this time we make it through and that we have that economic piece to it. It's just not strong enough the way it's stated currently. So I do think that needs to be worked on. And through this time with the pandemic and everything, I've spoken to several Latinos, and I've discovered that, you know, the ones that own small businesses didn't know of all the financial stuff, aid, grants and stuff available to them. And the ones that didn't do it because it was too difficult for them. They needed help. So that's something that's very needed. The small business owners that we do have do not take advantage of everything that's out there that's offered for Latino business owners. English-speaking Latino business owners also need training to become, to better themselves, and those that want to go into business to know how to go about doing it properly. Maybe there could be a business that helps people that want to get into business. And the advocacy part, yes, it's if we don't have that, the community behind us going to the Board of Supervisors just with a handful of people isn't going to do it. We need people to like be with us, even if they're speaking only in Spanish, even if their English is limited, even if they just go one time. And one time, with 50 people, it adds up. I think that's the only way they're gonna listen to us. And if we get out there and vote.
Okay. These are such important points. Let's see. I'm looking to move through some of the other comments.
There were some really good comments about streets and crosswalks that I saw that were a little bit further up. Let's see, they were talking about A4. Bonnie had a question about action 4. I think it had to do with complete streets.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and address. I just pulled up the article, and in planning, we like to call this urban tacticalism. And basically, it is an inexpensive way. And our class had looked for ways to do things quick and effective as some of our actions. So in our action plan, we do address some of these ones that are quicker, faster, and able to do at a lesser price. So one of the things that kind of was sprinkled into ours was the crosswalk, the cultural crosswalks. Those are just basically paint, if you want to add a little bit more detail to it. I think with there's a Clean California beautification plaza, and I think one of the things that they wanted to put in that was a cultural crosswalk. So I think that might be in the works in the design. But yeah, so I definitely think that's a good one. And we have thought about that in our actions as well.
I noticed there was one question about the street widths. Wanted to see like raised crosswalks. They've actually been doing a great job in San Francisco, putting in raised crosswalks in narrower streets that intersect with larger streets. They've been putting in these great raised crosswalks that actually slow people down and raises people up a little bit more, makes them more visible in the crosswalk. It's a great way to make sure that people stop at corners rather than just kind of rolling through stop signs. It also keeps children really safe because cars have to slow down to go over these bumps anyway. That's another great option to put in, especially for small streets that intersect with large ones.
I also just wanted to say that I just put in a link to the program that has, issued the grant for the Oceano Parklet project. I don't know how many of you are aware of the details. You probably are all aware of the details given how wanted that is. But we also have a fact sheet that we received from Caltrans about the project if you're interested in looking at that. They're working on that project right now. We had a question about whether signage should be in, the signage for the park system should be in Spanish. And we're certainly going to be recommending that. Just wanted to comment on that. Let's see.
Yeah, Kelly, I can kind of, I just want to second that that was one of my actions. I'm Nicole, and I did include kind of a section or a portion on including English and Spanish on any signs that are there. And then also to address Charles' comment about the 22nd Street access, I also have an action that addresses that access point to the dunes and what can be potentially done to help route pedestrians and visitors to that access point.
Great, thank you, Nicole. We are getting, we did get a comment about, concerns about narrowing streets, and that is not atypical for that debate. So it will be interesting to see if those proposals go forward, whether or not there's general support for narrowed streets. Let's see.
I just want to add that narrowed streets don't necessarily mean that traffic is going to back up and it's going to impede the flow of traffic. Many of the times, narrowed streets, people actually drive safer on them because when they see a narrower street, they're more in tune to what's going on the sides. Wider streets give people the latitude that they can speed on them. So wherever planners can, they want to put narrower streets in as much as possible, especially in residential areas, to help slow down traffic.
Not to. Okay, you're the first person. So thank you.
Oh, Kelly, you're muted.
Anybody else have their hand up? I'm not seeing any hands up, but please just speak out if we have quite a number of people here. So just speak out if you have something you want to discuss or ask students. I'm seeing support for the food truck idea and maybe some questions there. So Riley, just make sure and take a note. Obviously, we have all of these comments get synthesized, and we'll use them to finalize the plan. We had a question from Christina that I'm not sure I quite understand. Would food trucks be considered Oceano businesses?
Yes, because they can park anywhere they want. They can be in Oceano today and tomorrow in Grover or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
They're very mobile.
Right.
And would there be parking available for those who want to visit those trucks?
Right. I mean, that's something that has to be considered. I don't know if Riley wants to talk about have any of you been to the Grover Beach project that Riley is speaking about? It's nearby.
I go to the one in Napomo by Santa Maria Bridge.
And they have things worked out well, you think? Or
I mean, it doesn't look professional. It kind of just looks kind of thrown there.
Random.
Yes, and that's the thing about, you know, the food trucks. They don't look professional or permanently placed. They just look like they can be there today, not there tomorrow. And I don't understand why the restaurants that we've had in Oceano by the beach also don't even seem to make it. I mean, that's where all the tourists constantly drive by, and yet we haven't been successful even on that strip. It just seems very odd. I mean, we've had businesses that were 30 years old, you know, already leave us, but we haven't had any success with these newer businesses. And I don't understand what's going on.
Or just to quickly speak to that, parking wise, I'm not really sure yet. I haven't looked into that, but as a matter of making it look more established, I know that at least with Grover Beach, they did start off where it was just in someone's parking or in this businesses. The entertainment, G Beats Entertainment, his business, he opened up the parking lot and then allowed people to come station their food trucks and then created seating there. But then I believe once it becomes by more permit, they can actually make it into a food truck lot. And then in which case you can keep it where certain businesses can actually open and like keep their truck there or make sure their truck's there every day. You can incorporate more seating, lighting, that situation, which was kind of visible in the photo I showed. With Oceano, I believe it could work really well if someone would like to, like a business would want to use their parking lot and just make sure there's a set date, probably every week, or if you want it more consistent, right? Or bi-monthly or monthly, and then maybe partner up and try and get fundraising through grants or just GoFundMe and stuff like that to buy more nicer looking seating, lighting fixtures and stuff in order to make it hopefully more established looking.
I noticed there's a question from Bonnie about the disaster preparedness idea. And she wanted more details about disaster preparedness.
What exactly are we lacking besides your own personal disaster plan? Maybe I'm in touch with the county and OES, and if there's something they can do, they might do it.
I was
Sorry,
in charge
Sadie.
of that section. That's okay. And one thing that I found that was severely lacking was the preparedness for heat waves and like other just heat related events and like warmer temperatures. That's a thing that CalAdapt, which is like the agency that projects future climate in different parts of California, has said that Oceano is going to get much hotter in the future, and especially is going to have more heat waves, hotter heat waves, that sort of thing. And residents generally probably wouldn't be prepared for that. AC is expensive and other measures like that can be expensive. And the county doesn't have any sort of plan for that whatsoever. I read in their report that they don't consider that to be an issue. So there is no plan for that.
Well, I would think with ocean breezes, we're not maybe going to see that right away. I'm not sure how far down the road that is.
Maybe not right away. I would say that heat waves do come somewhat often. So could be somewhat soon. Having said that, heat is relative. So even if the temperature isn't extremely hot, it can still be deadly to people who are elderly or have some sort of disability or sickness or something. It can be people who need like refrigeration for their medication, and suddenly a big heat wave comes along and PG&E has cut off the power or something like that. It happens. So
we'll add in that a lot of the bigger counties have cooling centers that they open up during heat waves. They usually use a community center or a school or something like that that is open, so people can go in during the day and cool down, like the library or something like that, to make sure that people don't overheat. It's really especially important now as the climate is changing. Hotter nights are really a deadly thing for people. If it doesn't get cool at night, people don't get the chance to cool off, and then you begin the cycle again the next day. So planning for these heat events is really an issue. I mean, even in San Francisco, where I live, we have real hot heat waves every once in a while now that we didn't used to have. So you can get a couple of days where it's 80 or 90 degrees in a city like San Francisco or a place like Oceano that has, you know, a lot of cement. It traps that heat. So it's a very good thing to plan for.
yeah, and the cooling center was one of my actions. And to address Professor Simbieda's comment, I did look at the hazard mitigation plan that was done in 2019, and that was the one that specifically stated that they didn't have a plan for heat related events. There was like a specific paragraph where they stated like, we don't have a plan for this because we don't consider it to be an issue, and then they moved on.
I wonder, Bill Simbieda, Bill, if you could talk a little bit, we're getting a couple of questions about the what has been done in Guadalupe, since this is a little bit comparable to Oceano's concerns. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what's happened in Guadalupe as a model for Oceano.
Well, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, well, Guadalupe is, I mean, as a model, is a small town. Its biggest difference with Oceano is that it has its own incorporated jurisdiction inside the county of Santa Barbara. And by that, it has a council, mayor, and city manager. It's had a lot of city managers. And because of that, it has certain, responsibility. It controls its land use territory and rules, which is not the case in Oceano, which is just an unincorporated area of the county, not just, but is an unincorporated area. So that's the first fundamental difference. They both serve as suburbs of larger cities. I mean, in Guadalupe, it's really a suburb of Santa Maria, where Oceano is the suburb of the 5 cities area. And the second thing that's the difference is that the work in community development in Guadalupe has been a set of building blocks: get a chamber of commerce moving, get the business community together, get a community development corporation, in this case a nonprofit called Los Amigos de Guadalupe, and which had a civic spark person and a director to work with the mayor and the public works director and other people on finding grants and money and developing projects by project, which they could get the support of the mayor and the city council. So it's basically the question of home rule or non-home rule. In home rule, that they basically take actions to improve themselves, and in what the students have said today, what you presented is very weak linkages to the county of San Luis Obispo, and even Mr. Varney's work said, okay, the Council of Governments is doing this for transport, and I mean, secondary agencies at the county are just doing work, but the county is not part of the conversation that the students have presented tonight, but the county is not, passive. They have a public works department, they have a parks and recreation department, they have a planning department. And then also you have in Oceano, a special district to take care of wastewater. That special district, which is, a legal entity and works very hard to do this. And also was the special district was the one that sponsored, on the multi-hazard plan, the reason that Oceano is not in there particularly is because the Oceano special district, the flood control district, said they would do their portion of the plan themselves and not become part of the other multi-jurisdictional plan. So the public entities that's supposed to serve the people of Oceano seem to be absent in the discussion tonight. We don't know what I don't know what the flood control district does or how they contribute to that or what they'll support. And I don't know what the public works department is talking about, sidewalks and lighting, which is part of their purview. And of course, the public safety requirement is that the county is responsible for this. So the difference in Oceano is that slowly and incremental in Oceano, what we have is a slowly building of capacity using a community development corporation, nonprofit, to provide assistance to the council and the mayor and local government officials in Oceano to move forward their both economic and social and systems of improvement over time. That's how I see the big difference. And it's not that everything happens at once, but when they've had $3 million projects, $10 million projects to do historical improvement of buildings in Guadalupe, which will then develop into tourist interests, bring in more tourism. They have a few restaurants, but it is the fact that they have institutions in place in Guadalupe that incrementally improve the quality of work done for the people of Guadalupe that I see as the big difference at this point in time.
Yeah, and I should mention that the students have 44 actions, some of which involve the county. We didn't want to rely entirely on the county to do everything because they haven't necessarily been meeting those obligations. So the students also wanted to develop ideas that,
but you need someone to do it. You need
that's
a legal
right.
authority.
That's right.
You can't just say it's a group on the street are going to meet and today they're going to take hose and and backhoes and cut open and do some sidewalk because immediately the highway patrol will stop them.
Yeah, that's true.
So you have an entity. You have the flood control district, which is a legal entity that could expand its functions. In Cambria, you have Cambria deals with water. They deal with flood control. They deal with ambulance, which is a separate district, but they deal with it themselves. And they also have fire brigade, fire function. So you could use that, or you can create simply a secondary independent entity which would do other functions that you need. But public works, you have no one to do public works except the county.
I see that Christina's hand is up too.
Oh yeah, my hand's been up a while, but it'll be weird to address what I was gonna address. But I was just gonna say that yes, Guadalupe has been awarded a $4.5 million grant just to rehab a park. I mean, somebody there has really gotten somebody's support, and looks like they even have their mayor's support. And that's the thing we've always lacked. We've never had really influential governmental entities or individuals supportive of us. And it's almost as if they've actually been against us or at odds with what we wanted. And we never understood why. It was almost like we were a pawn or some kind of obstacle to something, or, you know, we were valuable to a district, or, you know, just some bizarre things that we never really understood what's happening in the background. And so it's really great that we're doing this and seeing if we can push it forward. But I really think we have to actually take that into account. I mean, we've never even had a city planner help us out, I don't think, because it's almost as if Oceano is split in two, because there's the beach area and then there's the town area. And those two parts of Oceano have never been united. And they both, I mean, the beach part would bring in the money and the town part would bring in the businesses and be beneficial to the residents. But the tourist dollars are over on the other side by the beach. So it's almost as if like we're split in half and not really cohesive. And that would be a wonderful thing to see. And that would begin, I think, with somebody who's really great at planning cities, you know, to draw us a great map or, you know, do something like that. And also, we also need to get the buy-in from high-ranking officials and take advantage of what the city can do for us, the state, and I don't know what other entities like federal government or who else could help us. There has to be other funding. I mean, Guadalupe is pretty tapped in, and it'd be nice to know where they got their sources or how did they get tapped in, so we can tap into those things as well, because we're along Highway 1. I mean, we're 13 miles away from Guadalupe. There's got to be some kind of resource that we need to know about or something. And it'd be nice if we had somebody that liked to do that kind of research or look into, hey, where did they get their funding from? And how can we get that funding? Or even Pismo Beach. I mean, how do they get so supported and us not? What do they have that we don't have? And let's focus on getting us those same things that they've got.
Pismo Beach is an incorporated city, and that's what they have that you don't have. As an unincorporated area of the county, all the tax revenues from property tax and sales tax and goes to the county. It doesn't go to Oceano. I mean, you're basically producing these revenues that go to the county, and so that those revenues are then shared with Oceano by the function of how the Board of Supervisors creates their budget. So if you want some money,
is Guadalupe a city?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It is totally an incorporated California city. It's the most northern city in Santa Barbara County.
Okay, but Napomo is not a city, and
No.
they get a lot better treatment. They're a town. There's other places that are not incorporated that get supported by the city. I mean, by the county. Yeah, so I'm not understanding why Oceano is the one that, you know, has to suffer just because we're not a city. We've asked to be a city. We were told that all we needed was to have hotels to be considered a city, because then we would be generating income and all of that. And we have one hotel, just one. We have been held back from having the very thing that would make us a city. Every time we want to become a city, they do something or say, okay, well, yeah, you have that one hotel, but there's some other reason why you can't be a city. And I think it's because we put money in someone's coffers, but they don't want to have the money come to the city. They want the money to be funneled to where it's being funneled to the state and to the county. And that's the most maddening part, is they're not even sharing enough of their wealth so we can keep our mouths shut. I mean, if they would just give us the basics, you know, then it would be palatable, but it's not. I mean, they're not even giving us that. And so that's what's so frustrating, is we just keep, you know, being put on this hamster wheel of you're going to get something, but there's other stuff in the background that you all need to look at. It's pretty nefarious.
Kelly,
And
can I jump in on this?
Yeah, yes, we have a couple
Okay.
hands up, so we should, and
Well,
we need to be conscious of time.
I was gonna, yeah, we don't have much time. We can't go on much longer. I was gonna hold my remarks until the end, but this is the appropriate time because there are two extremely important points that I was going to address. One has to do with the Community Development Corporation, the CDC, and the other has to do with advocacy. I am devoting a great deal of my time. In fact, I'm putting myself pretty much to work almost full time on both of these areas. Next week, John Day, who is on our council, and I are meeting with an authority on the development of a community development corporation. Christina, that's what Guadalupe has put in place. That's what many unincorporated areas around the country have put in place. We have been engaged with an organization called CECITA, which is the California Association of Economic Development. It's the California, what is it? California Community Economic Development Association, which facilitates the development of CDCs. And I have asked for case studies of other communities that have had similar problems to those of Oceano, where there has been a county government that has been non-responsive, and how they have gone about the process of moving forward despite that kind of inattention and non-responsiveness. And the CDCs, as I understand it, and I'm just beginning to really get into this, and John Day, as I mentioned earlier, will be joining me next week. John is the Director of Development for People Self-Help Housing, and we'll be meeting with somebody by the name of Bob Zdenek, who is a consultant dealing with CDCs. The other point I wanted to make in connection with how we get support in the county, independent of depending on our district supervisor, who we don't have, who Oceano doesn't have right now. One of the things I spend a great deal of time doing these days is advocacy. And when I say advocacy, I don't mean advocacy of county planning department and that sort of thing. That has been non-effective. That has not been effective over the years. I'm talking about reaching out to community leaders and business leaders and other organizations. We have, as an invited guest of mine here tonight, the newly appointed Vice President of Advocacy and Community Engagement from Visits Locale. She is with us tonight. So advocacy with key individuals, influential people in the community outside of Oceano is the only way ultimately we're going to bring the kind of get the attention and influence the Board of Supervisors, in addition to getting the kinds of results that the students, that Kelly and the students are zeroing in on with this study effort. And these are going to be valid, comprehensive study results. And so anyway, I hope, Christina, I have addressed, at least to some extent, your concern, which is such a central concern. I share it completely. And I'm glad to hear your feelings about becoming an incorporated community one of these days. And I will probably be getting back to you on that one at some point in time. Anyway, Kelly, I've gone on enough, but I'm glad this opportunity came up.
And then I think I see, I mean, thank you so much. I think this has just been such an important conversation, really. And I see Aline's hand up, and maybe we'll have Aline speak last, and then we can wrap things up here, just to stay, you know, to stay on everybody's timetable. Aline, do you want to make some
Yes, I
comments?
just wanted to echo everything Christina said is like right on it. And I also want to state that we should try to become incorporated. Guadalupe has the population is almost the same as Oceanos. Why can't we become a city? We have all these tourists, we have all these people coming to Melodrama, come to our beach. They say it's due to the off-roading. It was closed. It was closed during COVID, and we had our people coming every single month. More people were coming just to you know, enjoy our beautiful beachfront in a normal beach, in a normal tourist way without off-roading. Every single month there was more and more every weekend.
Pedestrians.
Yes, it
walking,
was beautiful.
enjoying.
We have pictures. We took pictures with drones and stuff because it was like every week there was hundreds of more people coming to our beach and just having fun on our beach. So I don't understand why if we push for it, we can't become incorporated in the near future. And let's do the CDC that Guadalupe is doing. If it's working for them, why can't it work for Oceano?
Okay, well, we want to say thank you to everyone. Just again, to go over what's coming next. And one way maybe of asking for a final comment, if you'd like to make it, as we said, we have 9 students going into a studio with Bill Symbieta to work on very specific ideas. Like for instance, developing the infrastructure, the plans for a CDC, like some of the other things that have been suggested, like creating the organizational structure that can produce a mobile food vendors festival. If you're interested in specific ideas being produced for the third quarter studio or things that you've heard here, please go ahead and put them in the chat area. That'll help the students maybe pick their projects. They're going to be working to actually come up with the details, right? These are ideas that they've developed. They'll be coming up with the details of how to carry out 9 of these ideas. So anything you're interested in the students pursuing would be helpful for us to know. And then finally, we'll be back for anybody who's interested in June to present the results of the door-to-door survey to let you know what kind of support there is in the community for different things, to hear what the community's priorities are. And we hope you'll encourage your neighbors, if you live in Oceano, to answer their doors when we come knocking. So because we're going to be doing this for another few weeks into spring quarter. Is there anything else anybody wanted to say? Connor, you want to wrap things up, or any students who want to say anything? We just want to really thank you for the time you've spent with us. This is I mean, we think this is incredible for the students' education. We hope we are really contributing to something for the community. I know I certainly wouldn't have come to Oceano and asked these questions of people again, who have been asked so many times what they want, if we didn't think we were going to be able to come up with a survey that could actually be used in a really powerful way. And that's what our hope is. So we will be back in June to present the results of that survey. Nick, I'll turn it over to you, I guess, to end everything, besides also giving the students a chance to thank everyone.
Oh, I just wanted to
go ahead, Connor.
Sorry, before you wrap it up, Nick, I just wanted to say, as the student representative and voted most popular in the cohort, I just want to say thank you guys for all the time you guys have put in with us. All of the, I'm sure most of you got interview requests from us, and you spent a lot of time answering questions about your experiences in Oceano. And that really did help inform us about how people that actually live in Oceano enjoy their town, and what they like about it, what they don't like about it, and what they want to change. This has been a very informative experience for all of us, and we have put in a lot of hours. I think it was missed on the slide, but we have 13 students. We had 1 professor. We worked for 6 months. We had 7 translators that worked for 10 weeks, and we came up with about 4,100 hours that we spent going over all of this stuff in Oceano and learning about your community, and trying to put together something that we think that you guys would really enjoy and that could be helpful for the future. So really hoping that this door-to-door survey comes together and we can give you guys some really solid information to help you guys move into the future. Thank you.
Well, I'd just like to say to you, Connor, and also to your colleague Olivia, who led the last session, as two of the leads, you've done a wonderful job in organizing, orchestrating the presentations to all of the students. We at OEDC are so grateful and appreciative of all that you've accomplished, all that you've been through under enormously challenging circumstances. And we realize that we've complicated your lives immensely, particularly Kelly's life, because of the way in which we have intervened sometimes. I hope not interfered in the wrong ways, but in supportive ways and contributed. But anyway, we couldn't be more appreciative and grateful to you for all that you've done. I also want to thank Fernanda for the job that she has done. I've heard good things from Fernanda, and it's wonderful to hear, to have someone like you facilitating or helping in the outreach effort to the community. The translators as well. And of course, Doreen isn't here tonight, unfortunately, because she deserves tremendous thanks for her volunteer efforts in facilitating the meetings in the past. And of course, Kelly, you, I don't know, there aren't words enough to express the gratitude that we feel toward you and what you've had to put up with. We love you, and we're really grateful, tremendously grateful for all that you've done. I want to end on the note that I began, and that is the OEDC. I formed it a year ago, exactly a year ago. And I formed it with one purpose in mind: implementation. That has always been in my mind from the days that OBCA got me involved in this initiative with Oceano. The issue has always been, there have been plan after plan, but the plans never went anywhere. There was never any follow through. So really the whole purpose, the whole reason for the OEDC in being is the follow through, is the implementation. And that's this next stage that we're going to be pursuing. And there's an awful lot that goes into that. I mentioned advocacy. And when I'm talking about advocacy, I'm not just talking about advocating what we're doing here to our district supervisor and to county planning. Those efforts in the past have led nowhere. But we are going to try a number of different things and get the kind of support we need county-wide, not just in South County. And I'm working with a number of other people and organizations to make this happen, to get the support we need to bring that advocacy to the Board of Supervisors in the way that we need. And of course, I mentioned the Community Development Corporation, exploration, and so on and so forth. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. You have my thanks, my love, I just appreciate, as we all do at the OEDC, all that you've done so far, and we look forward to June when we can get the wrap up on this effort. So thanks to all.
Right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Nick and Bonnie and Charles and Aline, who've given us so much support and help. And thanks to all of you. We look forward to seeing you in June and making progress for Oceano. We love you.
Good night, all.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.